You think you know the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, a sweet, magical fairy tale meant for children. But what if I told you it wasn't just a story? What if behind that fairy tale was a real historical tragedy, rewritten through metaphor to hide something terrifying? Beneath the surface of this Brothers Grimm tale lies a haunting mystery buried for over 700 years. An enigma still unsolved, with historians, archaeologists, and mythologists trying to piece together its hidden truth. Once upon a time, in the small town of Hamelin in what is now Germany, people lived in chaos. Rats were everywhere in homes, on the streets, even in churches and coffins. One day, a mysterious man arrived. He wore a brightly colored cloak and carried a strange flute. He made a proposal to the townspeople. "Pay me fairly, and I will rid you of your rats." They agreed, and true to his word, he played his flute. Mesmerized by the melody, the rats followed him out of Hamelin, plunged into the Weser River, and drowned. But then the townspeople refused to pay. Furious, the piper returned not to lead away rats, but the town's children. He played his flute once more, and 130 children followed him, never to be seen again. Since then, the town of Hamelin has remembered that day, June 26, 1284. But the tale hasn't always been told this way. The earliest record of the event dates back to the 13th century, and it wasn't in a fairy tale, but in an actual historical document. In Hamelin's church, before it was destroyed in 1660, a stained glass window bore this inscription: "In the year 1284, on the day of Saints John and Paul, 130 children left Hamelin and never returned." No mention of rats, no mention of a piper, only the disappearance of the children. Later versions, especially from the 16th century, began to take on a more fairy tale form, adding rats and the piper as moral lessons, perhaps to teach children obedience and honesty. But the original story? Completely different. No rats, no magic. Just a mass disappearance on a fateful summer day. What's even more strange is that this story isn't unique. It shares familiar elements with myths from across ancient cultures. From Greek mythology, Hermes, who used his lyre to guide children's souls to the afterlife, to Pan, the wild forest god who played pipes to lure people into the woods. In Celtic folklore, the fairy piper, who enchanted children and led them into the fairy realm, never to return. So maybe the Pied Piper wasn't just a stranger. Maybe he was a symbol of death, of the soul's journey, or of some ancient pre-Christian force that once walked the earth. In 2009, a team of researchers from Germany and Austria unearthed shocking clues in historical archives. They found documents revealing that in the 13th century, large parts of Eastern Europe were suffering from war and disease and in desperate need of settlers. At the same time, young people from Western Germany, especially teenagers, were being recruited to migrate eastward and colonize new lands in places like Poland, Transylvania, and Hungary. It's possible that the Pied Piper was actually a recruiter, perhaps using music, promises, or rituals to lure children away. And once they left, they never came back. In Siebenbürgen, there are villages whose founding families are believed to have originated from Hamelin. Gravestones there read, "The settlers came from the lands of the West." Could this be the fate of the 130 children? Now let's decode some key symbols from the tale. The flute isn't just an instrument. In many cultures, it represents breath, the soul, life, and death. The hypnotic music resembles a soul-calling ritual. guiding spirits through the veil between worlds. The journey out of town, through a mountain or portal, into a new land, is mirrors ancient shamanic rites of passage or soul transitions. Could it be that the Pied Piper was a psychopomp spiritual guide, leading the souls of children to the afterlife? Maybe the children didn't just vanish. They were sacrificed or transitioned to another realm through a ritual now lost to time. Some scholars even believe the children died en masse from famine, plague, or catastrophe, and the tale was born to ease the collective trauma, turning tragedy into legend. The story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, which you thought was just a children's fable, is actually a crossroads of history, myth, death rituals, and migration. A tale of loss and liminality, the threshold between worlds. He wasn't just a piper. He was the ferryman, the one who walks between life and death. And if that gives you chills, wait until you hear about Hansel and Gretel, which might be the memory of famine and cannibalism in medieval Europe. You've just watched an episode from Chilling Truths Behind Fairy Tales, where we uncover the forgotten darkness buried beneath childhood legends. If you're fascinated by history, mythology, and unsolved mysteries, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and share to help bring these lost stories, because some fairy tales were never meant for children.